Today we'll be learning a little bit more about coffee with the rich roots of coffee, presented by Rahanu Wells of Tougo Coffee Shop. So I decided today to come down and make a special field trip up to the cafe itself so that we can get a hands-on look of our presentation today. So without any further ado, I'll go ahead and hand things over to you, Rahanu.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. Welcome. I'm glad you're all here. Quite a bit of us here. Diana really came up here just to get a cup of coffee, truth be told. Don't let her kid you.
I did want a coffee.
But this is exciting for me to actually get together and talk with you all about the rich roots of coffee and what coffee means to me culturally. Just as a wonderful fruit to build community, friendship, family, laughter, cheer around. Coffee is a fruit, and coffee, these seeds themselves are seeds, they're not beans. We've taken on this lecture about what coffee beans are. They're actually seeds, and there are 2 seeds to each cherry. Anyway, yes.
We have a presentation.
Yes. So
Where's the pictures?
Go into our presentation now, and we're gonna get started. So.
I got it.
You got it. Great. So the rich roots of coffee. The agenda for today is going to be an introduction and a history of coffee, coffee houses and coffee culture, which is a really big one for me. And then there's the coffee bean, i.e. the seed itself. And then there's latte art demonstration. And I'm going to make latte art demonstration as inclusive as I can. And we'll have some fun. And I would love some questions. If you have any, I will answer them. If I cannot answer them, I will get you answers. So,
are you ready?
Let's get into this introduction of coffee. Coffee 101. Coffee is a delicious fruit. It's a delicious fruit that was discovered in Ethiopia by, historically it was known as a coffee farmer. His name was Cowley. Well, he wasn't a coffee farmer, he was a goat herder, happened to be a farmer. And upon his trial or his trails throughout the day during his daily harvesting, he noticed that his goats were eating from a particular bush and they were becoming very energetic and energized. And he wondered what they were eating and why they were reacting so agitated or eating from this bush. And he discovered that there were berries on this bush, and so he collected some of the berries and took it back to the monastery because coffee was founded in a monastery in Ethiopia. And so he took these coffee cherries, they didn't know that they didn't call them coffee at that point, that's tagged on from the Dutch, from the colonialization of coffee from the Dutch. He took it back to the monastery, and one of the monks cleverly figured out a way to pulverize these seeds and to create a beverage out of them. And he became energized and was able to stay awake for long periods of time from drinking this beverage. And of course, the beverage that they were consuming then had its own variable flavors, taste, profile, mouthfeel, etc. But throughout that span, back in the 1500 BC area, around there is where coffee originated in Ethiopia, sub-Saharan Ethiopia. So I'm going to try to stay on track here.
Oh, it's fine. I think we should come closer because there's a mic issue.
Okay.
So,
Great.
Sound a little better? And I also turned on
Let me turn this
captioning.
microphone up as well.
Yeah, wonderful.
Apologize for the technical difficulties.
Yeah, that's better.
Accessible for everyone.
Better here. Okay. Thumbs up.
Perfect.
Okay, great. So going back to what I was sharing, in the Sufi monasteries in Yemen, they employed coffee as an aid. And a lot of the monasteries, they use coffee as a means to keeping themselves awake and energized so that they can have long evenings of prayer without anybody losing focus, concentration, and or falling asleep. So that's basically how the drink became really, really popular in sub-Saharan Africa. And from there, through colonial, thank you very much. So coffee later spread to the Lebanon and to Persia, and in the 16th century, it also caused a lot of controversy because there were a lot of people that were halal and didn't actually believe in using any compound to stay awake because it was considered a drug by a lot of, gosh, what's the word I'm thinking? Religions. A lot of religious people didn't believe that it was something that should be used for any purpose because it was an aid. If you're going to stay up and pray, you should be well enough to pray on your own without the aid of a drug. So it was frowned upon and even made illegal in some places. And then coffee did arrive in the second half of the 16th century through the Mediterranean, through different commercial trade routes. And these trade routes were oftentimes colonialized, and a lot of the coffee trees were actually smuggled out of Africa. They weren't allowed to take these plants out of the country. But the Dutch actually did have an opportunity and did smuggle some coffee plants out as well as some seedlings. And then Europeans, of course, they learned about coffee through the Ottomans, going back to Ethiopia, going back to Yemen, and then began to propagate plants around the globe into different parts of the world. And here we have now coffee. And we have different cultivars of coffee. Next slide, please. All right, we're going to keep on to coffee culture. Excuse me for just a moment. Go. Does anybody have any questions at this point, or should I continue on? So I don't want to rush through this. I want to give you some nice meat and potatoes. I mean, some nice coffee and milk. Can everybody still hear me okay?
Yeah. So I have a question.
All right. So I'm going to fast forward now to coffee culture and coffee houses. Once coffee became a worldwide commodity because it became a very, very highly traded commodity, second next to oil, and it still is the second highest commodity that's traded on the sea market. It has become very, very popular. And if you go back to the Boston Tea Party, that is truly where the coffee house community began, because when we had the Poe tax leading up to 1776 or somewhere around there, I don't remember the timeline, but we threw tea off of the Boston Harbor, and we were protesting tea, and then we had no other beverage to consume, and we began to consume coffee. Coffee houses became really, really popular in Boston at the time. And the community around coffee began to form at that stage. And that was around, gosh, late 1800s when we began to build coffee houses in Boston and build communities around that. Next slide, please. Getting a little off topic here. So I'm going to backtrack and talk a little bit about coffee beans, coffee seeds. There are many different varieties of coffee seeds. And if you see this image here, this is the beginning of the coffee growing process. You see the little petal there, and then you've got your seedlings. And these are all the different stages that takes place throughout the coffee seed growing and transformation. So you've got your flower before it petals, and you've got your seedlings, your seed going into cultivar, almost harvesting. And actually, there's a skin, there's a shaft, there's pulp, there's mucilage. Mucilage is first, then there's pulp. You can actually pull these cherries right off of the tree and eat them, and they are delicious. I had the opportunity of traveling to Ethiopia in 2008 as a photojournalist for one of the major coffee companies here in Seattle as their photojournalist. And I had the opportunity to harvest some coffee cherries myself and had the pleasure of eating some of these seeds, and they are delicious. Subsequently, I did grow one at my coffee house up in the Central District and got to harvest some coffee seeds. But so if you take this cherry here, just squeeze it, you'll typically get between 2 seeds and 4 seeds, and you can just eat the skin, you can eat the mucilage, you can eat the pulp, which is very, very sweet, juicy, sometimes aromatic. There are different flavor profiles for different coffee growing regions as well. You've got Robusta, Arabica, you've got a different cultivars as well. Next slide, please.
Actually, before we move on, there was a question that was voiced during the coffee culture section of your presentation. Can we revisit that question?
Was that from Dan?
Well, it was actually from me, Aaron. So my question was really, so somebody, the shepherd picked or picked the berries. Who figured out how to roast them?
It was one of the monks, actually. It was the monk back at the monastery that this goat herder bought back these cherries. So he brought it back to the monastery, and the monk did what I did, I guess, took the cherries and looked at them and explored them and experienced them, and then decided, I guess, to eat one because the goats were eating it and they were behaving in peculiar ways. And so I imagine he decided that he wanted to do the same thing to find out what it was that made these goats behave in ways that were not normal. And from there, I guess the exploration comes in. So maybe if I eat it, okay, there's a seed inside. Well, it's a blonde seed. What happens if I put it on a plate and warm it? So I think there were exploratory processes that took place with it. And then, of course, you have your mortar and pestle. And these came from sub-Saharan Africa. So I guess they decided, well, let's go ahead and pulverize these and see what we come up with. Does that answer your question?
Yes, thanks.
Does? Okay, awesome, good question. And again, this part of my story, this is all based on my thinking of how the Sufis at the monastery came about making
That's not what the benefits will be.
It only makes
I
sense.
mean, they might be, I'm
history
hearing they
wasn't
could be a little lower. than
Because
29.6.
history wasn't documented.
They will not be
Say
29.6.
the
though.
monastery monks did X, Y, or Z.
It's going to be
So we
higher.
just have to fill in the gaps.
Sorry,
Good question.
somebody needs to mute their microphone.
Oh, I guess that's me.
All right, next slide. Yes, please.
Okay. Is there sound on your thing? Can you turn the sound on?
Turn it on?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's on right there.
No, your volume to your computer.
Oh,
There you go.
sure.
So we can hear people when they speak to us. There we go. Perfect.
Okay. I just didn't want to parse too much echo. Excellent. Okay, so are we there? Am I good? Okay, so this is our coffee flavor wheel. So if you look at all of these different, and by the way, coffee has many more aromatics and complexity than wine. There are many more varietals of coffee than there are wine. And so this flavor wheel was developed by the Specialty Coffee Association to help us identify different aromatics, flavor profiles, mouthfeel, texture, depth, and the developing of all of these different coffee varieties. And the different regions, different coffee growing regions throughout the world have different aromatics, fragrances, and mouthfeels. It's interesting to think about that in the Americas, most of the coffee is Central America, Latin America, Brazil. They're going to be a little sweeter and not as fruity. They're not going to be as aromatic as African coffees because of volcanic soil or the harvesting time, sunlight, temperature. So there are a lot of different factors that go into But these flavor wheels really help you to develop your palate, understand the different nuances of coffee, from taste to aromas. And they're broken up into really wonderful segments that help you understand and identify it. And if you want to become a really if you want to have good knowledge and depth of flavor, taste, and aromatics, it's important to have palate training and to receive palate training, starting with nuts and fruits, and identify from orange what do you taste, what do you smell, what do you feel from that experience, because the flavors from an orange, it just doesn't taste like an orange. It can taste like punch. It can taste like green grapes. It tastes like a stone or a nightshade. So yeah, that's what the flavor taster wheel is about. It's really cool to explore that. I definitely encourage you all to print this out. And one day while you're at home, or out with friends, or having friends over for dinner, have a palate training class or session. And I'd love to do one with you here as well. So, any questions about this flavor wheel? The taster's flavor wheel. And if I'm going too fast, please say slow down. If I'm going too slow, please say speed up and get to the good part, making coffee and drinking it.
Did you say that you do the palate training at your shop?
I do. And I do that off hours so that we're not interrupted by service.
Oh, okay.
I typically like to have between 8 and 10 people to do palate training. It's
Okay.
a 2 or 3 hour experience that takes place.
So how do you find out more information about that?
You can get that information from Diana, or we can all sign up afterwards. We can get you all of your information and send you out an invite.
Okay.
Yeah. And also the palate training is really great, not just for coffee, but as a whole, so that you can really experience what you're putting in your mouth, not just putting liquids or food in your mouth, so that you can really connect with what you're putting in your mouth.
Okay.
And who was that?
Susan Broon.
Hi, Susan. Thanks for the question. We got 4 more messages.
And we're getting a lot of great interest over the palate training workshop.
Excellent. Yeah, excellent. And it's typically a 2 or 3 hour, like I said. You don't have to stay for the entirety of the time. And I'll provide a little booklet for everybody to take notes on what you're experiencing from the different fruits and or vegetables that we'll experience and explore. The only thing I ask is that you let Diana know, or let me know beforehand if we have any allergies, so that we make certain that those foods or fruits are not at all in the vicinity of your person, because your safety is super important to me. So, I'm allergic to bananas, so please don't bring any bananas. You will not be allowed to bring any bananas.
I have a question, and I had to step away for a minute, so I apologize if you had said this already. This is Kiara, but I was just wondering, is the flavor palette, is it also based on the way it is roasted? So if it's lighter, it's more in the flowery, fruity side, and if it's a darker roast, it moves along?
It's a good question. No, not necessarily. The way that operates from the palate and from the roast process, it's all regional based. So it all depends on where the coffee is grown. So Brazilian coffees are not going to be as fruity as Ethiopian coffees will be a little more fruity because they're at a higher altitude. The soil content is different. And it's all depending upon harvest time, harvest conditions, how it was treated post-harvest, if it was washed, if it was a natural dry, if it was a honey process. So there are a lot of different factors to take into account with regards to taste, not just for roast.
Okay, thank you. It's very
Yeah,
interesting.
sure. Yeah. And basically roasting, you're trying to coax those natural flavors that exist in the coffee from their coffee growing region. If that, you get that?
Yeah, yeah. That's
Yeah,
really
so it's really cool to think about it. We're trying to roast this particular coffee, this is the blend. So this is a blend of Brazilian and Ethiopian coffee. So what they do is a post-roast blend. So they'll roast the Brazilian coffee for all of its nuances, and they'll roast the Ethiopian coffee for its nuances, and then they'll do a post-roast blend. Some people just blend and then roast, and they use different computerized systems now to try to determine how much liquid is in each different bean and the profile of what they want it to be, and they'll roast it to that specification. So, and the lighter roasted beans are typically dropped around the first half crack. So, hope that helps.
complex. Thank you.
Yeah, it is very complex, and I'm just at the tip of the iceberg. And by the way, my name is Bahanu, and I'm the founder of Tougo Coffee. I've been in the special coffee industry for about 20 years. I've been in the specialty coffee industry, but I've been in the coffee industry as a whole about 30 years now. And I'm still just scratching the surface of my knowledge base with regards to coffee education, coffee knowledge, and how to share that information. So, have a little experience, just a little bit. All right.
All right, and we can move on to the next slide, where you put all of the information together to make the perfect latte.
Ooh, wow. To make the perfect latte. You know, that's an interesting one because there really is no such thing as the perfect latte. But I want to change the narrative on that. The perfect latte is one that's made with love, that's made with patience, and one that tastes super, super delicious. I'm sorry, excuse me. It doesn't have to look pretty, but if it tastes delicious, that's the perfect cup of coffee. So I want to make you the perfect cup of coffee. I want to make you a delicious cup of coffee. So will you allow me to do that for you today?
Yes.
And you know, actually, can I do a couple of other points before making a cup of
Sure,
coffee?
sure.
Is that okay?
I can move
Or
the
would you like
camera.
me to make a latte? Let's make a latte first, and then I would like to do a couple of different brews.
Okay,
Cool. All right, excuse me for just a moment.
and we're gonna go on a little vacation here.
So, a couple of really important things to making a really delicious cup of coffee, a latte with milk, is to use really, really good water, clean water, nice filtration system, and really good dairy. If you're a dairy drinker, this is a phenomenal company to get your dairy from. They do not pay me to plug this or anything like that, but I'm lactose intolerant, but I can drink this dairy. I don't, but I can if I wanted to, and it's super tasty. And then there's one other, excuse me. If you are lactose intolerant and are looking for a delicious milk alternative, use this. It is made with grapeseed oil, so if you have an issue with grapeseed oil, I would say don't use this. We don't use almond milk here, and we don't use plastic to-go cups here because of the environmental impact they have. It takes almost a gallon of water per almond, and California grows 90% of the world's almonds, and right now, over the past 25 years, California has been in a major drought. So I do not carry almond milk for that specific purpose. Plastic, I just don't like to use it because it ends up in the landfill and it just lives forever and ever. So I'm trying to do my part by not having any plastic and or almond milk. Soy milk, I don't use it because it has a high count of estrogen, which is not good for women and or men or gender non-binary. So don't use soy. And of course, you'll want to warm your cup before you add your espresso in it. That way your cup has a nice gradient temperature.
There we go. Let me turn off the actual presentation mode so that we can get escape. There you go. Share. You're going to spotlight. There we go.
By the way, this is really exciting for me. I've never done this kind of a presentation before. I've done quite a bit of coffee training, espresso one-on-one training throughout my time, but I've never given a Johnny talk before. What's a Johnny talk? Just some guy talking about coffee.
All right, can you break down your process here?
So this is a portafilter. This is what we use to dispense our coffee. This is a grinder, and this is a coffee collar, because coffee farmers work really, really hard to harvest their coffee, to grow it, and the water they use is very scarce. So we don't want to be disrespectful to the farmers. We want to capture as much coffee as we're grinding as possible. So we use this collar so that all of the coffee we're grinding ends up in our portafilter. And basically, I have a weight of 19 grams that I like to have in my espresso basket. And I've got that in there. I use my little wire brush here. I don't know if you can see that exactly, but what this does is takes all of the coffee grinds. Can you show that there?
Yeah, let's take a look.
There we go. And it incorporates all of the different coffee particle sizes, because grinders cannot grind specific particles at the same exact shape and or size. So what this allows me to do, it allows me to incorporate them all, giving it a better chance for an even extraction, because we're working with about 200 pounds of pressure for my espresso group head, and that will go through coffee quicker than you need it to, leaving you with an under-extracted coffee. You want to have a really, really balanced extraction of coffee so that you get all of the sugars, the caramels, and aromatics. So that's one of the reasons why we do that. Now that we're all incorporated, I'm going to use my level, and then that basically just compresses the coffee bed down into an even flat. And then we have a couple of different tempers. This one here is a spring-loaded temper, and it basically keeps you from injuring yourself. And we'll put it right in the center there. Sometimes this gets jammed in there, but today it didn't. Then we have a convex, which has a little curvature, which is also good for water distribution. So we have a couple of different tools here. So this is what the coffee bed looks like once we compress it and then we tamp it, i.e. pack it. We have the screen here, which helps even water throughout the coffee bed. That's one way of using it, or you can do it naked like this. So we're gonna go ahead and drop that screen in there because we want the water to impact right in the center there, and it's forced to spread because water follows the path of least resistance. So if there's any type of a fracture in my coffee bed, the puck, the water will just channel down that path and not extract the entire coffee bed, which is what we want. So our cup is nice and warm.
I'm gonna have to spin around here and do one.
Did you want to come from behind? I can hold this for you.
Nah. Well, should I come?
Yeah.
Okay.
We're going to do a little technical switcheroo here, so give us just a moment. Alrighty.
Okay. All right.
Thank you for being patient, friends. Are you ready?
We're ready.
We're going to go ahead and begin our extraction. And you typically should get a drop of espresso between 7 and 10 seconds, in which we just started getting our first few drops here. And this is what we call the elixir. i.e. the magical part of the espresso. And at this point, you would put it around to the side, please. I'm going to go ahead and begin steaming because I see my full coffee extraction happening. Now, I always get a little nervous under pressure when people are watching me pour, so I hope that this pour is satisfactory. And I hope it looks delicious and creamy and yummy and all of those things that you expect from espresso with milk.
Oh my gosh.
This is basically your first cup of coffee for today. So this is espresso with milk, a latte. And one of the sweetest things about making a latte, i.e. the perfect cup, is when you steam this Smith Brothers milk, you get all the butter and the sugar, and the fat, protein. It's all dancing with this espresso, and it just becomes this amazing beverage that tastes like chocolate cake. Actually, it's quite delicious. And as I said, I'm not a milk drinker. I'm lactose intolerant, but this dairy I can actually drink. And oh my God.
Never gets old, does it?
That's a good cup of coffee. That is a very good cup of coffee. So thank you for entertaining me on letting me make you a latte. I would love to make you one in person and or teach you some barista skills so that if you decide you want to get an espresso machine at home, I can train you on that. I can help you pick one out. I would help you pick the best one out for you and your budget. So yeah, wow, that's
Beautiful.
thank you. So I want to move on now to just a couple of other brew methods.
Okay, can you hold this? I'll come back around for that.
Yeah, of course.
Thanks for your patience, everyone.
Thank you, everybody, for your patience. Oh, goodness, that's so good. It's yummy.
We can see if folks have latte questions.
Yeah. I'd love to answer any.
Can you turn up your laptop volume?
Turn the volume down?
Up from your laptop.
Okay, sorry.
So any latte questions before we move on?
Thank you, Dan. How to add flavoring? Oh, that's a good question. So to add flavoring, so I don't typically add flavor to the coffee at all, but we make this. We make in-house vanilla bean using a Tahitian vanilla bean. This is the only flavor that we have in-house. I do have other things that I put in our coffees. So I use a lot of aromatic bitters. I don't know if you can see that or not. Diana, would you pull that line down maybe? I think that's better. Yeah, looks a little better.
Yeah,
Can you see that?
I can see that.
Okay. So I do a lot of coffee mocktails using aromatic bitters. There's that one.
Mhm.
So I apologize. I said I don't use a lot of flavoring. That's not true. I do.
And what do you have there?
This is an old fashioned. So we make old fashioned lattes. We make different coffee beverages using aromatic bitters. So I really apologize. I do use flavorings. I was thinking like, what is the pina colada or those types of flavorings. I don't use any of those types of flavorings, but I do use aromatic bitters in our coffees and or house-made vanilla. Those are the only flavorings that I use. Because I like the idea of exploring coffee as a cocktail, not just as a one-off coffee beverage, because it's an experience for me. I don't drink coffee to wake up and get energy. I wake up and get energy from that. But I do want to show you a couple of pour over brew methods. Yes.
Do you do light roast espresso?
No, I do not use light roast espresso. The only espresso I use in house is from my longtime roasting partner, Linea Espresso Linea Cafe down in San Francisco. I work with Linea particularly because they roast coffee in the traditional Italian way, which is roasting to second crack. So it's a full body, full city roast. So it's a little darker than it is a light roast Nordic approach to coffee. The light roast coffee, they use what's called the Nordic approach, which is just barely approaching the coffee's true potential for all its worth. So it's roasted more towards first crack and then closer to second crack and then drop off with the roast tray. But I like to have coffees that are a full city roast, where the coffees are roasted to their full potential without over roasting them to where all the coffees are, the coffee flavors are washed out and muted. Hope that helps. Yeah. Would you slide that over the whole table?
Yes.
Slide that whole thing over. So I'm excited to show you two different pour over methods, because I'm not done yet. I want to show you some more fun stuff. And by the way, this espresso setup that I have is called the mod bar system. It's a modular bar system. I don't know if you can show them this, Diana, if they care to see it or not. But it's really cool because it allows you and I to have more interaction with each other, the modular bar system. All of the components for these different tap heads are all contained beneath my counter. It teaches me to be a better barista, a cleaner barista, but it also lends more to community interaction between you, my guest, and me, the barista. And it just gives you a different experience. So I'm going to grind up some coffee here, and these are single by the cup brew methods. It's called a pour over. And I'd just like to demonstrate with you this method. It's going to get a little loud here. So this method is a flat bottom brew method. So it's going to have an extraction that undulates or pulses up and down, not undulates. Undulation would be that. And I use this automatic brew method so that I can focus on other tasks as a barista. It frees my hands up to continue making other beverages. But I can also do this manually. So now I've just dispensed 15 grams of water for my first tour extraction. And now I can let it go. And I can move on to my second brew method, which is a cone filter. And this one here has no paper, so you're going to get all the aromatics. You are going to get some TDSs, which are total dissolved solids. But this is similar to a French press coffee brewer, except you will not get all the heavy total dissolved solids and the grittiness from the French press. Whereas this brewer here, you're not going to get any of the total dissolved solids that you would otherwise, because you have a filter that's capturing a lot of the solids, but you'll still get the viscosity of a full-fledged cup of coffee. So I'm going to grind up into this now. And this is a V60 cone filter. Typically grinding at about 24 to 27 grams of coffee, depending upon the coffee that we're brewing. And I do adjust my coffee grind sizes based on my brewing method. So if I'm using a wire basket, such as this one, or if I'm using a filter with a collider wave as this, I'll adjust the grind by 1 millimeter. Just to keep the coffee particles from falling through the brew basket of either of these two. Because these two cones here may look the same, but they're quite different if you look at the diameters of them. So one has a little flat bottom, the other has a larger circumference of the flat bottom. But this screen here has wider holes in the basket. And this one here is sort of a single wall. So we're not going to use that one, we're going to use this guy. Does anyone have any questions about this at this point?
There was an ask as to what espresso machine you use.
Oh, it's the mod bar system. So I'm using the mod bar system, which was developed in Arkansas by a group of young coffee nerds who decided they wanted to use the beer tap method as a new and innovative espresso machine. So this is the mod bar system, and it's mod bar because it's all modular. So each component is governed by its own component down below, and you may want to pan out to show them those components there, so they understand what the mod bar is.
Mhm. There's the mod bar, and the rest of the system is hidden underneath the bar.
Yeah, and a lot of people think this is my stereo system, but my high fidelity stereo is not like this. But this is the mod bar system. Each of these components here controls each of these espresso tap heads. This is the steam module. This one here dispenses steam. And these are my individual brew heads. So this one is really cool. Can I snap that head off?
Oh, yeah.
Can you kind of show how this is?
Mhm.
Come on, get on in there. And I can actually bring it to you. So we get the entire coffee bed saturated. Ooh, that looks good. And that way the entire coffee bed is saturated to make certain that there's even extraction. And then we'll lower our nozzle. This round. And this is basically coffee agitation. When I sway the water back and forth, it's encouraging and coaxing flavors and aromatics out of the coffee. And the first pour over that we made is now completed with this brew cycle. And it's typical 3 to 4 minute brew cycle. Smells really sweet. Very floral. And that goes into the compost. And we typically will send our compost to Yesler Farms, which is part of the Black Farmers Cooperative right down the street on Yesler Way. They also have a second farm over in Redmond. So now we can go ahead and give ourselves a little something there. And typically when I brew a coffee for somebody that's just an exploratory or in training or in palate training, I'll pour just a little bit so they can try it. And just for you, ready?
Why, thank you.
That was actually for them to try, but
I am them. Yum.
and so this is basically the setup of Tougo Coffee's Cafe, but a brief history of coffee and the world of coffee. the culture of coffee is something really phenomenal and really important to me because I love nothing more than building community and building community around something so wonderful as a fruit that is turned into a beverage. And we get to commune and share stories around the campfire of coffee. It's simple, it's sweet, it's delicious, and it's comforting. You know, and cafes have become brave spaces for people to come and share, learn, collaborate, communicate, to have graduation parties or going home ceremonies, i.e. transitioning to the other world, marriages, birth. Actually, I had a situation yesterday where a friend of mine got to meet a child that was birthed out of me introducing two people together 15 years ago. They met at my cafe and ended up having a child together. And I hadn't seen this child in about a decade. And oh my God, it was a wonderful experience to see this young child yesterday. So I don't want to talk about the beatnik generation, i.e. Jack Kerouac and all of his band of misfits becoming authors, literary giants, James Baldwin, all of those different folks who use cafes and coffee culture as a way to collaborate and a way to get away from mainstream society's oppression. Yeah, you know, coffee houses were a good place for artists to come and commune, and not just artists, but people that didn't follow the beat of a society from, I don't know what I'm trying to say there, but you get it. I think you get it. Yeah, coffee houses are great. And always, when you can, go out of your way to find your neighborhood bodega. They are there to serve you. I pray that they are there to serve you in the way that is authentic and genuine and not disingenuine, and that they give you the ability to be brave. I don't believe in safe spaces because I want you to come out of your cave. So I believe in creating a brave space for you to share exactly what it is you need to, when you need to, how you need to. And it's great to do it in a coffee house. So please do take the time to explore that. Does anyone have any other closing questions? Because I know we're just about out of time and I don't want to go over time because I'm sure you're all pretty busy and I appreciate you hanging out with me.
Well, before we get to some of the questions, maybe you can talk a little bit about where Tougo is and what are your plans for the summer?
Sure. Well, Tougo Coffee is in Yesler Terrace, neighborhood of Seattle on Broadway and Yesler. There's an amazing park across the street if you have kids. It's a fantastic park. There's slides, there's swings, there's a water park. There's a Seattle Sounders not football stadium, but football park that the Sounders and the city help to collaboratively build for children. And the cafe is a wonderful place to come and hang out, and play board games or talk about plants. I also have a wonderful green thumb. If anybody needs plant triage, I can help you. But yeah, my plans for the summer are just to continue serving my people, showing up and being a source of inspiration or a source of light, I guess. Yeah.
With hours?
Pardon me?
Hours.
Oh, hours are Wednesday through Sunday, 8 a.m. to 2 p.m. And we have a happy hour on Thursday and Friday evenings. And once a month, we have a Vinyl Salon Seattle, which is a vinyl listening experience. It's a 3-hour vinyl listening experience where we pair jazz with wine. And sometimes there's alternate music in there as well. But primarily it's jazz and wine. So yeah, throughout the summer, I just continue, I'll continue to build community, make delicious coffee, and hopefully have some of you folks in to experience and explore Tougo coffee and maybe do some palate training, just have some fun together.
And for the month of June, Tougo Coffee is a part of the UW Partner Discount Network. And if you come into the shop and show your Husky ID, you can get 15% off of your cup of coffee.
Just come in and have an experience. Come in and say hi, even if you don't drink coffee. I have some amazing tea from Miro Tea Company in Ballard. They've been my tea partner since 2008. They're incredibly wonderful people as well. But yeah, just come by, have some fun.
Great. Thank you so much, Prahanu. We do have a few more minutes and a few questions for you.
Excellent.
And I'm just going to go back up to the top. We missed a question from Dan about the roasted coffee. Does the roasted coffee you use include the chaff?
No, chaff is never used in coffee, but chaff is used for it's used for tea.
Oh,
So chaff is used for tea. It's called cascara.
beautiful.
Yeah.
Great.
And it makes amazing tea too. And Dan, if you'd like, you can come in and I'll give you some of this.
Jennifer asks, I once took a coffee tour a few years ago when some out-of-towners came to Seattle. Are you a part of any coffee tours by chance?
We were a part of the White Mustache Tour Company, and then Ann Peavy from Coffee Crawl Seattle. And then there is Michael was leading Coffee Crawl CD. So we've been a part of Coffee Crawl since I started and founded Tougo Coffee 15 years ago. So we've been on several Coffee Crawl tours. But currently, there haven't been any new tours that have come about well, we're still in COVID, but nothing has come about yet. So yes.
Bonnie asks, what does Togo stand for?
Hi, Bonnie. Thank you. Togo stands for a West African country right above Burkina Faso, but it's also the name of my 16-year-old son, Tougo. So it incorporates both of his cultures, being half Japanese and half African-American. There's a Japanese Navy general that my son is named after. So, yeah. And you may also see him working in this coffee bar with Summer if he can. Sometime in September, I hope it'll work.
The last question from Wei Chow. Will you always be at the shop?
Hi, Rachel. I will be here. Yes, I love being here. Yeah, I wake up in the morning and I just can't wait to get to work so I can serve my people. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, sure, of course.
If there are any other questions, we'll be happy to field them in.
Yeah.
Otherwise.
I didn't hear anybody ask what my favorite coffee was. What?
I have a question.
No, yes.
What's your favorite coffee?
My favorite coffee is the one I made, but with oat milk. Yeah. Okay, so everybody, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate you letting me into your home office or your office at the U or wherever you are. Thank you so much for spending time with us here today. You could have been anywhere else in the world, but you're here with us. I really humbly thank you for your time. And thank you, Diana, for putting this event on. And again, if you have any questions or you want to go ahead and take the palette training, please do send Diana an email. I don't know if my email is included in the presentation or not, but we can make that happen. So again, thank you so much for your time. I thank you, thank you, thank you. I humbly say thank you again. Okay, have a great day, everybody.
Thanks, friends. Bye.
Bye.
Much. Bye.